Last week, I was scanning my shelf of PS2 games and came across one I have never played before, Katamari Damacy. I actually got this game years ago back on eBay when you were able to purchase a box full of random PS2 games. Man, I really wish we could go back to those days. I haven't really gotten around to playing it until now, and I can say I was definitely not disappointed with what I saw, and I was very upset with myself for waiting so long to try this game. For this review, I'm actually going to break my thoughts into segments instead of just word vomiting. I will discuss gameplay, art design, sound design, multiplayer, and my overall experience with this game. Now enough yapping, let's play some Katamari Damacy. Katamari's playstyle is extremely simplistic and arcade-like, which makes sense considering Namco created this. You play as a prince who is tasked to rebuild the cosmos because your father, the king, accidentally destroyed all of it. To fix his mistakes, you must roll a giant adhesive magical ball called a Katamari and run over various objects until the ball is big enough to become a star and later, the moon. You can run over toys, food, clothing, various fish, animals, people, mermaids, sumo wrestlers, cars, semi-trucks, buildings, ships, and even islands and clouds? Yes, even clouds. This unique and wacky gameplay really pulls the game together in a really fun way. I had a ton of fun rolling over every single object in my path and found myself roaring with laughter when I ran over people in literal islands. This game's absurdity created a unique and fun gameplay overall, and it makes me sad that we don't really see very many games like this anymore. I will admit though, the controls took me a while to get used to at first, and I found that the time limit was really too strict at times. In order to progress in a level, you have to keep running over objects to make your Katamari bigger so you can later roll bigger objects. This structure works. However, there are times I found myself struggling to find things to make my Katamari bigger to progress, therefore wasting time and ultimately failing a level. This did happen a lot in later levels, but none of the levels were impossible because of it. Just a bit annoying. There was one issue with this game though, and that's the obstacles. Of course, this game wouldn't be a game if there was zero challenge, but I felt like I was hitting bigger objects or walls and losing items, making my Katamari smaller. There seems to be a lack of clarity on what you can and can't roll over, leading me to accidentally bump into obstacles left and right and wasting more time because I would have to re-roll the items. Also in some later levels, I noticed it was hard to avoid the barriers as well, especially towards the end when I had to create the moon. The map wasn't bad, but I felt like I wasn't able to get through certain areas when it looked like I would have been allowed to enter. This did get very annoying after a while and caused me to fail multiple times. But after a while, I did eventually beat the level. If this game really can improve on anything, it's definitely clarity on what you can and can't roll over that goes beyond the tutorial. The tutorial was helpful, but it did fail to mention these factors. Some levels even have features, like gifts. Gifts aren't available in every level, but the king will tell you when a gift is available before the actual level starts. One thing that sucks about these gifts in my experience was they were really hard to find. Once you do find them, you have to keep them attached to the Katamari, so no running into walls. I only ended up getting a crown from the prince for a gift, but I was unable to find all the others. I do intend on going back later to find them though, because I hear that he has a little scarf that I absolutely have to have. Overall, the gameplay is solid. It's a bit tough to get used to the analog stick only controls, but once you get used to it, the game really becomes a lot of fun. I am absolutely obsessed with the art and sound design of this game, especially the sound design. I was quite upset with myself for missing all this great music in the past and not adding them to my music playlist. I can confidently say now, after playing this game, I was absolutely adding the in-game music to my playlist, especially Lonely Rolling Star. I would say it was absolutely hilarious to hear some jazz music about love while I am running over a group of civilians with my giant Katamari. The songs are absolutely lovely to listen to on their own, but they take an entirely different meaning when you're actually playing the game. I loved that, and I was laughing so hard through most of it. The art design, while simplistic, also works. Everything has this block-like style, but this is not a game where realism should apply. I believe adding any realism to this game would ruin the unique and chaotic effect this game has, so in my opinion, the art style really works for a game like this. Katamari actually has a multiplayer, believe it or not, and shout out to my husband for playing with me. The multiplayer seemed to be a lot easier than the single player game, but I guess the difficulty would entirely depend who your opponent is. The objective is the same as the single player game: roll up as many objects as possible before time runs out. There is no minimum requirement to win though, you just need to beat your opponent by having a larger Katamari. The objective is the same as a single player game. Roll up as many objects as possible before time runs out. There is no minimum requirement to win though, you just need to beat your opponent by having a larger Katamari. Unlike the single player mode though, instead of being outside, on a table, or rolling up planet Earth entirely, you are confined to a small, uninspiring room with random objects scattered around. I wasn't personally a fan of this, but I know multiplayer wasn't the concentration of this game. I do wish we could roll around on single player maps instead of just a room, but I suppose it really wasn't a big deal because that wasn't the focus of this game. However, as a kid, I would have been extremely disappointed experiencing this with my little brother. One thing you can do is select characters from a pretty good amount of options. All these multiplayer characters are actually the princess cousins, and you can unlock more as the game progresses. I do wish you could switch to these cousins in-game, but I do appreciate them being available in multiplayer at least. One cool thing you can do in multiplayer is trap your opponent into your Katamari and force them to struggle to escape. Your Katamari has to be bigger than your opponent's to do this though, but it was absolutely hilarious to do it and watch my husband struggle escaping. After my husband and I played for a good bit, he told me that he thought this game was pretty fun, but definitely weird. I really couldn't disagree with him on that. In conclusion, Katamari Damacy is one of the weirdest games I own, but it is also one of the most fun. Even with this game being over 20 years old, it was still a ton of fun to play. The entire concept is bizarre, yet enjoyable. I do wish there are some more features, like maybe different maps for multiplayer and a time limit being more relaxed, but despite all of this, I still had a ton of fun playing this absolutely absurd and ridiculous game. This is definitely a game you should try out if you haven't yet, even if it does look like a trip. I had a great time playing, and now I kind of want to buy the reroll version of Steam. Definitely not gonna lie.